Hi, everybody. My computer is very slow tonight. Sorry, I had difficulty logging in.
I know what's going on here. Hello.
Hey, Tony. Hi, everyone.
Jeffrey. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, my volume was down, so trying to figure out what's going on here. We got Doug. We got Jeffrey. Hey, Doug. We got Elisa out there. I thought we had Rennie.
Hi. Randy and I are coming in for the same meeting. He'll be here in a moment.
What meeting did you come from?
It was SUNY.
What meeting?
It was a meeting down at SUNY New Paltz.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I know it's that Revision had a meeting today, so I couldn't make that. So we're waiting on Rainey, I thought was connecting, and Michelle.
Yeah, it looks like Rennie's still waiting to connect. So maybe he has a slow connection.
Not too many things on the agenda, but I thought we had the chief. At least is the chief there today too. He said he was going to come and join us.
Yep, he is. He's trying to log in.
All right, thank you. Got Lisa out there. I knew the person to call to find out. Right there. It's jacked up.
God, I hope so. I gotta get there first. Not even 48 later.
Doug, Tony,
Michelle.
Jeffrey,
So we got
the chief.
Chief,
me. We got Doug. We got Jeffrey. We got
Doug.
Michelle.
yeah,
But he was just in the union meeting.
I just was, absolutely.
Union.
Yep, he's there again.
All right, thank you. Got Lisa. I thought, Lisa, can you invite John Schulteis? Because I know he was thinking of the stop sign. So
I did send him the link earlier.
Okay, all righty, thank you.
Yes, I did send him the link earlier. You're welcome.
We got the chief. Thanks for coming, chief. And I'm not sure who 63657 is, but I don't think that's John Schulteis.
It's likely to be Ariel.
All right, I'm just looking to see.
I did send a link to Serena also, Tony, just so you know.
Serena as well? Okay. So we're just giving them a couple of minutes, see what they're going to come, if they're coming in.
Yeah, 3657, Tony. That's Ariel
All right.
from the Freeman.
Hey,
Hi, Ariel.
John, you coming in with us today?
yeah, can you give me about 5 minutes? I'll be
All right, good enough. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
John, I just talked to John. He said give him about 3 to 5 minutes. He should be joining in. We can always start without him. That's Ariel. So we're still looking for Serena. who got the link to come in to give us the update. And so we don't really have much on it on this agenda. So we could start the meeting, Elisa, and then have the chief, talk about new, and then come back to when Serena and John come in. The stop sign. So.
I did send you the link earlier.
Yeah. So we can start the meeting, and I'll go through the spiel, and then, like I said, we can jump to new business since we have the chief here. We don't want to hold them and no longer than we need to, and then hopefully Serena and John will be here and talk about their reports.
Serena's here.
Okay? Who?
Serena is here.
Serena's here. All righty. Hi, Serena.
Hi.
I don't see everybody. I don't got this thing. So, all righty. So, Lisa, if you want to start the meeting, and then, like I said, John said give him 3 to 5 minutes, so he should be here shortly. So, if you want to start, and then I can give the reading and then all that, and we can get going here.
Did you want me to start with my report?
No, we have to wait until Lisa starts the meeting. And
I wasn't sure.
I gotta get my
You were talking to me or someone else? Sorry.
We're all
Sorry.
set, Tony. Go ahead.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you for joining the City of Kingston's Common Council at our Public Safety General Government meeting. Today is February 24th, 2021. Before we begin, we would like to go over a few guidelines to help us navigate the system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. 1, we ask that members of public and press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. The moderator for tonight is City Clerk Elisa Tenti, and she reserves the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Council members and city staff will control their own mute button. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedbacks. If a council member or staff wishes to speak, they will raise their hands. I will call on members by stating their name clearly for our audio listeners. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcripts will be made available to the public on the city's website. Although we will not have public speaking tonight, you can sign up to speak at our monthly council meetings. Please email Elisa Tinty to sign up by noon the day of the meeting, or you can submit written comments for the record for the same deadline. The email address is emtinty, that's TINTI at kingston-newyork.gov. Again, it's emtinty at kingston-ny.gov. You can also drop comments off of the drop box located outside the side door of City Hall. We also encourage you to reach out to committee chairs or your ward's representative at any time. Clerk Elisa Tinty is the moderator for today's meeting. She has a right to lock and pause the meeting to reject anyone who has behaved inappropriately. Lastly, at tonight's meeting, we have in attendance me, Tony Davis, and chair, and committee members Doug Coop and Jeffrey Ventura Morel, Michelle Hurst, Rennie Scott Childress, and city staff. We have City Clerk Elisa Tinty, Police of Chief and Police of the City of Kingston and Police Department Chief Tinty, and then we have Serena Peppers here, who's going to give us, who's a part of the sorry, Serena, it's off the top of my head, but the climate action plan. And so thank you for your patience during, and then we're going to have John Schulteis shortly, city engineer, will be joining us as well. Lastly tonight, thank you for your patience during these difficult times. And on behalf of the Common Council, I wish you and your family good health. I now call this meeting to order at 6:38 p.m. So the first on the agenda will be Serena Peppers, if you want to give us an update. And Rennie, do I have to do something differently? I keep on forgetting this. Just make sure I'm doing it properly. Serena, if you want to give your update.
Thank you, Tony.
Yes, you're welcome.
This is Serena Pepper, and I'm reporting for the Climate Smart Kingston. And I'm going to just give you a quick rundown. We did get our feedback back. We had a survey out for the Climate Action Plan 2021. There were 225 responses to the survey, and that really helped to give us an idea of how the public wanted to prioritize the goals for the Climate Action Plan. And that's moving forward to the next 10 years. We had a climate action plan in 2010 that expired in 2020. And because of the pandemic, we're getting a little bit of a slow start, but we're rewriting it for 2021 with another 10-year set of goals in mind to reduce greenhouse gases and a number of other things. I don't know if anyone was able to take the survey, but you're welcome to look at that on our website. And the focus groups are going to be put together based on the results of the survey, and they'll nail down specific actions and priorities. The Cadmus group is helping us with that. They're using that data to drive a timeline that will get us in place for the draft of the climate action plan to be reviewed by the public in the fall. We're also working on a refrigerants inventory in the city of Kingston. Our Commissioner Dan Smith is working on that, and he attended a Pollution Prevention Institute workshop. Made some good contacts there for future projects, but they're basically wrapped up at collecting the data for the city assets. They've inventoried all of the air conditioning units and all of the refrigeration units in the city of Kingston that are run by the municipality, so that we can get an idea of what's going to be phased out in terms of there's a lot of legislation that's coming up that's going to be basically, it was passed in years gone by, but now it's starting to actually be enacted, where we have to change the type of refrigerants that are used in the municipal buildings. So they're trying to get an idea of what we have on hand, what's going to need to be changed, and then kind of start to plan for what it's going to need to be changed to. A lot of these refrigerants for these cooling units are lifetime pollutants. So the way that they have to be disposed of is really heavily regulated. And they try to recapture and recycle some of these refrigerants or keep them from escaping into the atmosphere and damaging the ozone layer, basically. So just to give you an idea, because I know I talk about some of the stuff, but never really describe what I'm talking about. So that's really great. The LED project, I think you guys have all noticed that we've got LED streetlights in Kingston now, and they have remobilized because there was a punch list where they needed to just knock out the last of the decorative fixtures that needed to be converted. Along those lines, that funding from NYSERDA that paid for the Cobra heads and the decorative lamps in the city of Kingston is also what's going to pay for the installation of the license plate readers for the main entrances for the vehicular traffic in and out of the city. So Julie Noble is going to be managing that as part of her role as the sustainability coordinator, and NYSERDA is going to be funding the installation of license plate readers. Looks like coming up this year. So that is part of the streetlight project, because based on the construction of these streetlights, they have the ability to be adapted to have Wi-Fi capability or be able to do color changing. I think she said there were a bunch of different things that they could do, but one of the things that they can do is power and create a data uplink for a license plate reader. So that is underway. And I think the next big thing that we had, which I talked about, was at the last update for you, was putting stickers on pizza boxes here in the city of Kingston at a lot of the retail locations to try to remind people that pizza boxes are not recyclable and to not put them into their cardboard recycling bins. So that's just something that we're trying to work on. We've got a couple thousand stickers printed up, and we're hopefully going to get that rolling out soon. But I think one of the things that was mentioned is the Super Bowl slowed us down. So now that we've got the Super Bowl out of the way, we can start to get everybody's attention again at the pizza shops. Julie's working on 9 projects for the community block development grants. And those are at parks for different upgrades. There is an open vote right now to pick among three options for the park designs for the Kingston Point Playground. So if you're interested in voting on what you would like the design to look like out of the options that the consultant has provided, that's at engagekingston.com. And that will be for construction, I think, starting later in the year once that's determined which option they're going to follow. The Repair Cafe is proceeding under modified leadership by Melissa Everett through Sustainable Hudson Valley. So there are not going to be any in-person repair cafes under her guidance, but I think that they're working on a regional plan to try to get some kind of, I think she called it a worker space. And they're trying to get funding for a 3D printer, some regular printing options for public access, and to try to channel John Wackman's vision that he had. They're doing some fundraising still, and Mana Jo Green is also involved in that effort to try to get some county legislation passed to identify some potential locations for a reuse center. There's some initiatives going around to try to basically carry on John's work and locate those in the city and or the county. Sorry, I just flipped it wrong. So the green jobs update is kind of related to that. They're trying to work out a partnership between this makerspace, sorry, I said it wrong, a makerspace with 3D printing and public access that will also involve the training for green jobs and some kind of coordination with SUNY Ulster. Other than that, I think that there's going to be an interactive exhibit coming up at the Hudson River Maritime Museum about climate change. If anybody's interested, that will start rolling out in April. And I don't think we had any other substantive issues to report. It was a lot of stuff that we have to resolve or that nobody was there to answer to. Look forward to hearing more about the stretch code at the next meeting, but we didn't really have any decisions on that. Thank you for your attention and look forward to the next meeting. Oh,
Any
Michelle, you have a
questions?
question?
And Michelle, then Rennie. Michelle Hurst and Rennie Scott Childress.
Yes, hi, Serena, Michelle Hirsch here. Thanks for the info. I just have two questions. The first regarding the refrigerants, you referred to legislation that was passed in the past. Is that state legislation or city legislation? Just can you clarify, please?
Well, it depends, but usually it's actually federal legislation where they outlaw a certain type of refrigerant because they stop manufacturing it, and so they stop putting it into industrial equipment.
Okay, great. And then the second question was regarding the street lights. So every street light now that has been converted to LED has Wi-Fi capacity?
No, there was just a question at the meeting about why NYSERDA would be paying for license plate readers to be installed. And the reasoning is because as part of the capability of the smart node feature on the light post, it can be used for a bunch of different functions if it's installed. We don't have them installed on every pole. That would be really expensive, but that funding is going to put a smart node on the lamppost, which will have the license plate reader on it.
Okay, great. Just curious, just because we've had, areas of the city that had, a lot of students that didn't have Wi-Fi. So I was just curious what that was about. So if there's ways to expand Wi-Fi throughout the city. So I was just asking for that reason. Thank you.
Rennie Scott Childress.
Thanks. Hi, Serena. Rennie Scott Childress here. I'm glad to hear you using John Wackman's name. I'm happy to hear that folks are carrying on his wonderful legacy. I was wanting to ask you about the response to the CAP survey. So you said it was 200 and something. That's about 1% of the city population. I'm wondering, was that completely voluntary in the sense that did the city just like put out a Facebook post and wait for folks to respond? Was there any specific reaching out to try to get different constituencies to respond? If you could just help us understand how the survey was done.
That's a good question. I don't honestly know how long they ran the survey period for. It was something that I knew about, obviously, because I'm involved in Climate Smart Kingston. So I'm kind of knee deep in it. And I've been involved since they finished putting out the last climate action plan. I don't know how intensive the outreach was for it. I think that that's something that the Cadmus group is the consultant for that project. It's not something that we're running in-house like we did. The city actually paid for the first climate action plan to be drafted. And Mike Darcy and a couple of other people who you might know were on the climate action plan, or were on the whatever green jobs and something. Oh, it had a terrible acronym. It had like a 7-letter acronym back then, but it was Rich Schiaffo, who was the employee of the city who put together the climate action plan back then. And now that it's being done by a consultant group, we don't really keep a lot of that stuff in committee. It's something that's being handled by them. So I'm not honestly sure how long they ran that for and what kind of outreach they did on it.
All right, thank you.
And Serena, I just have one question. And in regard to the license plate reader, who is going to be responsible for that data then? If you're saying Julie's running it and it's part of the street lights, is that going to be run by this police department, or it's going to be run by another department collecting that data?
Well, actually, I think we heard about that here first at this meeting. I think that the Chief Tinty put in a request for the license plate readers. So I thought that you would maybe already know.
Well, we know that Chief Tinty had put in the request, but this is the first time I'm hearing about Julie running it in as one of her things.
Well, she's running the installation. She's literally running the physical installation of them. In terms of where they're putting them, who's going to be getting the uplink from that?
That's the police department.
Chief Tinty might know.
All right. All right. I'll be able to ask him that since it's here.
Just to be fair.
All right. Any other questions?
Thank you, Serena.
All right. Thank you, Serena. We'll see you. Look forward to talking to you next week or next month.
You're welcome. I am going to dip out only because I have the kids are like trying to be quiet, but it's not going to work. But thank you so much.
No problem. All righty. Thank you. So up next is new business, and that's discussion of the re-envision recommendations from the re-envision task force. We have City of Kingston Police Department Chief Tinty here, and welcome, Chief. And thank you for taking the time out to come and address it. I know some of the members on the committee had some questions in regard to that, so and hopefully you'll be able to answer those questions for us. So welcome, Chief.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have the video off. We're having some technical difficulty here at the house, but let me see if I can turn it on and if that works.
Yep, we can see you.
Can you guys see me?
Yeah, and you're
okay, great. And it's working in this side.
You're great dudes. You got your full uniform on today. All righty. Well, thank you.
If you check my shoes, I don't have shoes on. How's that?
All right. So again, welcome. Some members had some questions in regard to his re-envision task force. The recommendations came out of that, and we had a little discussion with a couple community people in regard to that. So we wanted you to just come here and to maybe address some questions. And I'm Rennie, Michelle, Jeffrey. I'm not sure if you guys have any questions in regard to that, but I'll let you guys go first. And Michelle?
Actually,
Michelle Hurst, Michelle
I
Sway.
attended the police committee meeting, so Chief Tadiq was at that and presented, so.
All righty.
I'm good.
Nope.
Thank you for
Okay.
everyone for their hard work. Thank you.
Okay. Rennie, Scott Childress, Jeffrey Ventura Morel. I can't see. Rennie, you can go up. Jeffrey, you're on the next page, so I don't know if your hand's up or not. But Rennie, Scott Childress.
Thanks. Hi, Chief Tinty. One of the things that in the report that I thought sounded very promising was the attempt to develop some kind of part of either the police force or the county mental health department, where you'd have folks responding to mental health emergencies, so that we could, if we could somehow build up those services. I'm just wondering if you could speak to what you think. I'm not asking you to say you're going to do it. I'm just asking you what you think would be involved. How many people are we talking about? If you have a sense, what kind of structure? Would it be all county? Would there be kind of like a city-county hybrid here? Do you have any ideas along these lines of how something like this might look?
We've looked at a couple of different models, just from our experience. The calls aren't consistent. It's not like every call requires mental health professionals to accompany the police officers. I think there is a need, and has been determined both by research, data analysis, and just national narrative, honestly, that the number of calls are increasing that the police officers handle on a regular basis when it comes to those that are emotionally disturbed or have mental health issues. For us in law enforcement, we act on behavior. So in a lot of times we get called because a person is acting out in some form or fashion. So when we respond, we have to quickly assess, is this an illness? Is this a person who's under the influence of something? So in many cases, it'd be nice to be able to have resources that we can call to have them show up. Ideally, we were just talking about this at a different meeting. Ideally, if there was a way to filter those calls to a central dispatch station, so that when the call comes in and the person says, this guy is all over the sidewalk, he's screaming, he's yelling, he doesn't have a shirt on, something's going on with him, he's talking about the moon. Okay, now we're going to send the cop and the mental health professional can engage at that level. Police officer would stand by. When clearly someone is committing a criminal act, that would require the response to law enforcement. So unfortunately, I think that we currently rely on mobile mental health. There are some limitations. I know that they can't cover all the shifts all the time. We do call on them when we can, but there has to be some sort of mechanism to decipher where that unit goes or when. And I think that's certainly, from my opinion, operationally, it should be done at the dispatch center. The call comes in, what do you have? There's smoke coming out of my house. Well, you're going to call the fire department. Nope, there's a person dancing in the middle of the street. And right now, 911, Ulster County 911 handles those calls and are essentially the filter system. But when people call the non-emergency line, which is more so than not at 331-1671, they get the police dispatch. And a lot of times, all we have as a mechanism is to dispatch our own. So it is a system we should look at. And I know that other places, as Dave McNamara talked about with the cahoots, I think there has to be some sort of mechanism to get the dispatch system in place first before the units are sent out.
Thanks.
Any other questions from anyone out there? All righty. Chief, with this Rear Vision Task Force, and, it's been talk about, building better relationships between the police department and the community, and also, addressing the incidents of crime that are going on in the Kingston. And can you give us any update or speak about, the incidents of, death and, where's that and where's it going right now with that, with any of the outstanding, still some of the outstanding cases?
Absolutely. I hope everyone understands at this meeting that there's certain information I can't reveal. All I can say
That's
that
correct.
everything is moving in a positive direction as it's beginning, and that the officers, the detectives, the investigators, the state police have been very important to everything that's going on. And frankly, the manpower resources are taxing, but we are still moving forward on it. So I can't say more than that, Tony. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. And do you see, what is your take on, do we need a stronger presence, I guess, of the city police and the police department in the city? Or do you think it's strong presence now? Do you foresee, a partnership that we had, over the summer, I guess, or I can't even remember my things back in the early winter with the state police and the sheriffs?
So I think the law enforcement partnership that existed back then with the state police, the sheriff's office, and KPD served this purpose. We were experiencing a high level of violence throughout the city. This was our way of kind of getting out there, trying to get people to talk to us. There was enforcement effort, absolutely, but as we talked about before, it was a three-tier approach. There was the enforcement effort, the local patrol, high visibility patrols out there, the investigative component, and lastly, the community engagement component. I think all three of them were successful. At this point, and I'll be honest with you, if we had additional staff, if we had additional officers, I know this is a topic that has always been discussed lately in the last year, defund, divest. But I can tell you from our perspective, administratively, officers are assigned to handle calls. We're meeting that demand. I would like to see additional staffing utilized for positive interaction, more of a community liaison unit. I think that has had success. We just don't have, unfortunately, the availability for staffing right now to do that. The officers that are assigned to the shift are responding to calls. They're doing the enforcement component that they're required to do. And as far as getting out, walking, engaging, I know in and of itself, COVID has created its own problems, but as far as the community engagement, I would like to see that. And maybe that's part of the plan, that once we start seeing COVID kind of get behind us, that we look towards putting resources to increasing our community engagement, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 dedicated officers assembled just to engage the community at meetings and public events and and discussions. I mean, we have had some difficult discussions over the last few months at some small community meetings. And I say difficult, nothing that stopped the dialogue, but things that are difficult to talk about, whether it's race relations, whether it's hiring, whether it's, discipline practices, whether it's training. And those things are important to both the community and the police officers.
So you're saying the community engagement, you would like to see that expand, but at this time, and because of COVID and the manpower, it's not feasible at this time?
That's correct. I really do think that a community like Kingston would benefit from having a number of officers assigned just to community engagement. There's been success in other places. And although we believe in the community policing principles, it's limited because the majority of the officers' time is spent responding to calls, and patrolling the streets. And I think in places where there has been greater success, you've been able to assign officers just to that detail and then enforce the community policing aspect by rotating officers in and out through that unit over the course of a month, 6 months, 8 months, a year, whatever it might be. But then everybody gets a piece of that engagement level policing with the community and kind of gets away from the law enforcement component.
Okay, because it has, I'm sorry, Randy, I have one question I bring, because it has been discussed and with some community people about trying to get the officers, the visit, the Boys and Girls Club, the Wise, the Hodge Center, discussion about making the Hodge Center like a place, a hub where people can go and talk and feel comfortable talking to police. But you're seeing at this time that would be difficult to do because of the manpower. Would you be able to display?
That's correct. At this point,
have a certain location where a police, a car, a law enforcement would be, if people wanted to come and speak to them or something like that, would that be something that you could have done, you know, in like a midtown location somewhere, and just have an officer stationed there, and have that a place where people can feel open and safe about going and talking to the law enforcement about whatever it might be? That could that be done, or that's not something that can be done?
No, it can absolutely be done. Whether there's certain locations in every ward, certain locations within the city, designated time, again, it takes resources, right? That's something right now, you know, unfortunately, we're having difficulty with the staffing levels. You know, even we're currently at the budget number of 71, and at that number, we can do what we have to do to keep the calls answered and so on. But ideally, we would be looking for additional staffing. And I know that that's not a popular thing to say right now, but that's what it would take in order to get that level of community engagement. You know, as you've seen, you know, we had at the high point, we had 80 officers at one point, and even below that at 76, that didn't include the SROs. Now we have 3 officers tied up at the school on a regular basis. What we're looking to do really is kind of set up a unit in the future dedicated solely for community engagement. You know, I say that because that would include bike patrols, that would include, you know, all the festivals. Again, after COVID gets behind.
All right, Rainey, I seen your hand up.
Yeah, so if
Sorry,
I could
Rainey's got
follow up,
feelers.
if I could follow up on what Tony's asking you there, Chief Tinty, the question then, you've mentioned a couple of numbers. For a city the size and texture of Kingston, if you could give us a sense of what's the optimum number of police officers, that's on one hand. On the other hand, if you're talking about creating this kind of unit that would be engaging community connection, how many extra officers are we talking about if it's different from that optimum number that you have?
So it's not just the city size, right? You have to take into consideration the contractual requirements, whatever's in the CBA, time off request, how it works. There's other things that we have to work around administratively when we talk about staffing. Ideally, from historical, just from the numbers we've had historically in the police department, with 3 SROs, if we could get up to a number between 76 and 77, including the 3 SROs, that would still allow us to add, right now, above that, 3 to 4 officers that we could dedicate to a community engagement. So we're looking between 70, right? We're currently budgeted for 71, and I know this is a big ask. I recognize that. I really do. But in order to get out there and engage on a regular basis, Mayor asked, what can we do to engage? Right? And we talked about even going to, it's difficult when calls are backing up certain shifts. So these officers, and I say the community officers, would be permitted to really just answer the call for community needs, to meet with individuals, to talk about neighborhood issues, problem-oriented policing, where they go back and they say, you know, I've problem with my neighbors parking here, and those things before they actually become calls for service. And ideally, make it so that the officers within the department, patrol officers, would then rotate through that community engagement unit. So it's not the same 4 or 5 officers for 5 years, right? Maybe on a yearly basis, they would rotate out or rotate half of them out so that everybody in the department gets a feel for that particular job and responsibility.
Great. And then thank you for that. On a different matter, you know, one of the things that we've been trying to figure out has to do with crime prevention. And I'm wondering if there are programs, I don't really remember in the report, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember that there was much attention paid to the topic of crime prevention per se. Do you have some ideas there about some programs that have been successful? You know, because this is one of those places where we come into this conflict where, you know, certain members of our community historically have a very difficult relationship with the police. Other folks have a feeling all we have to do is, you know, double the number of police and there'll be no crime. I'm just wondering if you have ideas, though, of actually effective programs that we aren't doing here in Kingston that we might look at.
So the one thing that was successful back then, and I say back then when I first started early, was neighborhood watch programs. They had community watch, neighborhood watch, they went by a couple of different names. With now the advent, the introduction of camera system, individually owned camera system, I think that goes a long way. I know there's communities that have installed Ring camera systems or Nest cameras or whatever's out there now. Blinks, Amazon has a Blink product out there as well. And that does help prevent, sometimes it's a deterrent. I know that the city many years ago went through installation of few cameras in the city, but maintenance was an issue. Really just monitoring it was an issue. Where I think now getting community members involved directly by having them monitor their own little piece of the neighborhood would go a long way. If they see something, then they could report that to us. And if they don't feel comfortable coming to the police, they can certainly at least report it on a tip line. And if not, then they can go to their, I use the term, but the neighborhood watch captain and report it to them. And I know that one of the things that was talked about in the task force report was a liaison program where a member of the community essentially is the liaison between that part of the neighborhood or that part of the city and the police department. I think that there is a level of trust that that individual would have with the police and that the community would have with that individual. And they would have to certainly undergo some training as far as police protocol and policies. And we have some of that with the commission. I think that currently exists in its current form. But I think if you get more people involved in it, I've never turned down or would shy away from a meeting with anyone. But the reality of it is we have 71 officers currently budgeted. A number of them are in the police academy. So staffing is difficult right now. And for us, to try to get more out of what we're doing, it's very difficult. It's more than just. So I think that really at this point, even with the number of officers, we need the community to help us do what we've got to do. We're trying to respect everyone's privacy out there. As you mentioned, Rennie, we fully understand that there are certain parts of the community that don't want the police around. They're uncomfortable, there's distrust. We recognize that. And we're trying to close that gap. Unfortunately, we still have a job to do. When crime occur, as we've seen over this past year, we still need community involvement to solve those. It is unfortunate that it took the death of a young girl bring that about. And we have seen substantial change in how the community has interacted. Our anonymous tip line really kind of blew up over the course of a few days afterwards. I think community members have recognized that they have to have a stake in where they live as well, not just rely on the police to do that. I say all the time, we'll put the cuffs on a guy, but we need somebody to help us identify who did this. That's really where the success of the communities comes.
Any other questions? Chief, this is with the ring that you brought up, and there's been discussion out there in the community with some people in the community and about the ring program. And this bringing this up, there's been discussion about reaching out to the manufacturer of the rings to see if it might be a discount, and that people who in the communities around the city of Kingston who wanted those rings, and they'd be able to get one and have someone just come and install it. Obviously we're talking about the ones that you can just charge and put on. Would that be something, and I'm not sure the police department, your budget or something that might be willing to sit down and discuss about a way to help fund that and to get the rings out to as many people in the community that want the ring? And is that something you would be able to? I'm not sure how that falls in, if that falls in with your budget. And, again, the mayor set aside $100,000 for recommendations under this and revision task force. Is that something that, you and the police department would be willing and to sit down and have more discussion about?
Absolutely. I'm a very big supporter of personally owned camera systems for security. I think the Ring and that similar style camera system has a lot of merit. It is controlled by the homeowner, and I think that goes a long way, because at that point they're the ones that hold the information. The systems are very valuable. They have been valuable to us. And I know that they, in particular, and I'll say it again, Ring as an online community. You can actually share your videos. We're part of that. Houston Police does monitor that page as the law enforcement agency within Houston. And we can then check if someone says, hey, I just had a package stolen off my front porch. Community members will say, oh yeah, I think I know who that is, or did you report it? Or there's a little bit of engagement there. And they're able to put that small bite of video on there. You can see it. And it is a valuable tool. Again, the costs, I understand that some of these budget, whether it come out about 100,000 or if it's that money that the city comes up with it. But certainly there is a mechanism there, whether to train a number of police officers. And again, in an ideal world, if we had a community engagement unit, I would assign 3 or 4 officers to get trained on how to install them. And they would be the ones going door to door to those individuals that sign up for it and say, yeah, put it on mine. That's great. Make a good, positive contact face to face. And I think that's where that relationship really starts.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Anybody else? Any questions? Any more questions of the Chief? I can't see everybody's hands. Doug, Jeffrey, Michelle, Rennie. Nobody else? Alrighty. Again, Chief, thank you for coming and attending the meeting and giving us this valuable information. And we look forward to speaking to you in the near future.
Thanks, Chief.
Now you can get the tie
Absolutely.
off.
Very much.
Now you can get the tie off.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night. Thank you. Alrighty, the last thing I have on our agenda, old business, is the stop signs. And we have City Engineer John Schulteis here to give us an update on that. And John, you still here?
Yes.
Alrighty, welcome, John. Thank you for coming. And if you can give us an update on where this is, I know all the women, Michelle Hurst is the one spearheaded this, initiated this thing. So could you give us an update of what's going on or where we're at?
Sure. Thank you. I think this goes back a few months to just occasionally in our investigations, we would find locations that don't have stop signs installed that should. In some cases, those locations are legislated, but we've found a number of locations where they're not. And I've been working with the superintendent of DPW. Today, I presented him with a list of locations. Due to the size of it, there's about 52 stop signs needed. He was a little surprised, and he does not have that in his current budget. So he's going to likely be making a budget transfer request at the same time that I can come back possibly as soon as next month with the list to be legislated. So in most cases, these locations are relatively minor streets. In fact, some of them, as we were discovering them, there were street names I was not immediately familiar with because they typically are low traffic areas. So that's we'll probably be back before you next month with the list to act on and for legislation at these locations.
Sorry, can I ask John a question?
Yep. I'm sorry, Randy, I was just writing down something. Randy Scott Childress?
Yeah. So, John, will you also give us a recommendation if you think some of these sites don't require a stop sign so that we could take them off the list, or are you just going to give us a list of where they're
right? So per the MUTCD, which is the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, any intersection needs one of 3 things. It needs a stop sign, a yield sign, or a traffic signal. So the only there are probably some locations around the city that are currently all-way stop that probably don't need to be. I can think of a few off the top of my head. However, they are legislated as such, and presumably there was a a reason of some kind why that was installed 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago. But no, my current focus was not to go back and identify any such areas that, you know, if there's an area that's currently a four-way stop that does not need to be, you know, I could give you an engineering reason why, but there was probably an alderman request years ago that created those situations. So is it unsafe? No. Is it undesirable? It is, in a sense that where stop signs are used excessively, it tends to create disrespect for stop signs. If you're consistently arriving at an intersection and being told to stop, and there's at a minor cross street, over time, we know people just psychologically, human nature is to over time roll through that stop sign. And not only at that location where their senses are telling them, there's rarely a need to stop here, but that disrespect or of stop signs translates to other locations where, hey, you really do need to stop at this one. So is that I mean, if that's a request from the Common Council, I could come up with a list of such locations. But I know there are historical reasons why those stop signs were requested and legislated many years ago in most cases.
Thanks. I'm not making a request. I was just curious.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any questions? Doug?
Yeah,
Cool.
John, in your list of 50 some odd stop signs, does that include any changes in stop sign configuration at that, what I view as an awful intersection of Main and Wall Street, specifically coming along Main Street, where somebody passed me tonight in the actual intersection?
No, I did not identify a need to add stop signs, which is my current effort.
So no change in configuration at Main and Wall is what you're saying?
Not as part of this current effort.
I think that's a mistake, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, please, you could reach out to me with some background.
Anybody else? I'm just looking for hands, and I'm going through here. And I have a question, John. So I just want to go back. You said all locations need, you said by regulations, they need a stop sign, a yield sign, or a traffic signal, and all locations. And so you've got right now approximately 50 stop signs that are locations that need some type of either stop sign, yield sign, or traffic signal. And your recommendation is stop signs. Obviously, that's less expensive than traffic signals. And next month, you're going to come with that list of those potentials.
Yes.
And you're saying as well that some of these intersections that have a side, like a small side street, and that doesn't have much traffic, and that's when we could have discussion about if we need a stop sign there, or it still would require a stop sign because of
there's a couple what we call warrants. A warrant is a engineering term meaning something is demanded by the conditions. So the decision to make a given intersection, picture in your mind just a typical minor street crossing a larger street.
Mm-hmm.
There's an engineering decision to make that two-way stop on the minor side streets only, or a all-way stop. And the most common reason in the city environment to make that an all-way stop is a lack of sight distance.
Okay.
In which if you come to a stop on the side street and you don't have sufficient sight distance, you need the main street to also be a stop.
Okay.
because you can't see the 200 or 300 feet down the street. So one of the constraints that affects that is on-street parking. So when we went through recently and converted some old obsolete signals to always stop, you probably remember that effort. In each case, those also came with sight distance restrictions, which is the reason they all became always stop instead of two-way stop in certain locations. So the other condition to use an all-way is when the traffic volume on the two streets is relatively similar. So in a case where you have a main street and a very minor street, you're going to put the stop signs on the minor street unless you need to make it all way, which if you had to do that in most cases, it's because there's a lack of sight distance.
Okay. So with these 52 sites, and you're going to be giving us a list, are you requesting that all the person go out and look at these sites and come a recommendation, or we're saying that by regulation they have to have some type of signal there?
In none of them was there any kind of judgment call, in my opinion. If somebody felt strongly, oh, this should be a yield instead, which we have very few yield intersections in the city. That would be about the only possibility. But I think you'll notice when I provide the list, a lot of these are very minor streets that have 3 or 4 houses down a dead end leg of a street. And so historically, I think DPW probably saved some money by because I'm not even aware that a lack of stop sign at any of these locations has ever resulted in a crash. But nonetheless, to be in compliance, we need to have the signs posted.
So even though it's minor, not many houses and not much volume, traffic volume, by regulations, we still need to have some type of signage there.
Yep.
All right. So again, and when we get this list, we can look through it. That is not really not something we can say, no, we don't want, as an older person, that we don't want a signage. We don't want a stop sign there. It's going to have to be a stop sign.
Right. At each location, I'll put in my recommendation, on which street it would be installed.
Okay.
I think in most of these locations, you're going to find the logical drivers are already treating it like a stop, even though it's not posted.
Okay. Any other questions? I'm just looking to see. Jeffrey, any questions? Because you're on my other screen, Jeffrey. All right. Randy, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to second Doug's concern about that intersection at Wall Street and Main Street. I've seen so many near misses in that intersection. So if you need anecdotal evidence, I'll be right in line behind Doug.
And I'm not familiar with that street. And is the talk about stops, the signage, or is it about making the road and reconfiguring the road? That's why I wasn't sure. And what's being requested.
I think that's part of the problem there, because when you're heading what's kind of southwest on Main Street, there's no stop sign, but it's a bona fide intersection, cross intersection, but then there's the church on the corner. So people who are coming into the Stockade district up Wall Street, they can't see that somebody's flying through the intersection on Main Street because they don't have a stop sign. The assumption of the person on Wall is that they've got everybody's going to.
So you're talking about the main church up there across from Old Dutch Church.
That's right. Right.
And the Main goes that way. And so Main, yes, I've been there. Main doesn't have a stop sign, and they can just fly through past Old Dutch Church and keep on going. And then if you're coming past that one church there, which church is that in the corner?
It's the Catholic Church.
St. Joseph's.
St. Joseph. If you're next side to St. Joseph, you have to stop, right? And correct. And yes, you do have to creep out there because people coming from the county building or they can come and they just keep on coming. They don't have a stop sign there. Yes, that's one of those crazy streets that's probably all of us have probably one of those streets in the ward that it's like, oh, what do you do? And so yeah, I mean, I guess yeah.
I'm in my third term, and since I began on this council, I've been advocating to put a stop sign on Main Street. And tonight, I mean, just 1 hour ago, to an hour and a half ago, somebody actually passed me in the intersection, and then it went flying by.
All right.
One thing I could do at that location, I've not been asked to, but I can get the crash records to see if it's a location of higher than normal crashes.
All right. Any other questions? Discussion? All righty. Thank you again, John Schulteis, for all your expertise in this. We'll look forward to next month and getting that list, and so we can take a look at it. And thank you. Have a good evening. Any other business that needs to be discussed? Any other business that needs to be discussed?
No.
All righty. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Michelle Hirsch. Second by Rennie Scott Childress. All in favor? What? What happened?
Everybody, I was making a joke. Everybody else had seconded it before me, and you just.
Oh, I just see your big picture there. Everybody else is up on the top screen. I don't know how it is. Are everybody in favor of it? Anybody opposed? All righty. So this meeting is adjourned at 7:31 p.m. We look forward to seeing you guys at the next monthly meeting, and if not before then. Thank you guys. Have a good evening.